everybody. We're here to talk about what we're calling the keys to enterprise project management. So I've put together a little presentation for us to guide us through it. Going to bring that up right now. Here we go. Boom. Our next level webinar series. As that loads onto your screen. All right. Keys to enterprise project management, also known as organizational project management. What we're really talking about here is going to be talking about the benefits that can be gathered by making sure that projects are not just managed randomly, that it's not just about implementing project management practices to a single project, but actually implementing them in a consistent fashion across the entire portfolio of projects for your organization, to ensure that we can track long-term benefits to the company and ensure that these projects really are as successful as we believe them to be. Now, PMI offers tools to help us with that. They do. And we're here to try to introduce some of those concepts. A lot of people out there seem to believe that the PMBOK guide, the project management standard, is the only one that PMI has introduced to us. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to have a discussion of the concepts of enterprise or organizational project management, the basics of it, to introduce it, to hopefully get you to understand why it's an important concept, and for the sake of your companies and yourselves, to learn more about it. It's about how to ensure that your project management practices benefit the business, that you get the most from them, and to help us understand the PMI resources that are available to help you do just that. So first off, we're going to have a little agenda of who's New Horizons, then my presentation. I forgot to remove the word demo. I apologize. There's no demonstration. And some questions and answers. We're New Horizons, proven worldwide training provider with flexible learning solutions, broad spectrum of topics. I am one of the oddest of the instructors with New Horizons because I teach one of the widest ranges of materials. My actual background that got me into all of this is actually from being software developer. Primary focus there being web development. That's where I got my start. Now, moved to web, I actually started with the Windows development and everything else. Done IT administration, systems engineering, and I teach all of those concepts. And I've worked the job real world. And when you work that kind of job real world, without a doubt, eventually you're going to be asked to implement changes into the company, to implement a new network, a new piece of software. But you just don't want to implement the change haphazardly, right? You want to implement it in a way that removes some of the risk of the negative impact the change can have, so that it's marketed to the people so that they are on board, so that we get the support we need to get it accomplished. But we also need to make sure that those projects meet the needs they were intended for, not just short-term, but long-term. And that's where the concepts of organizational project management come in. I earned my PMP because I was already running these kinds of projects within businesses. As far as New Horizons goes, we are the largest international network of educational systems, okay, for computerized education, 2,100 classrooms, 2,400 instructors across 56 countries, 3 million student days of training delivered per year. Flexible integrated learning methods that include, in the classroom instructor-led, online live, which I'm actually teaching up to starting this today. I'm actually teaching some programming classes this week, a programming class, a 5-day, and I'm teaching it from my office. My students are spread across the United States. We have great interaction, great pieces. I can even help them out with their labs. It's great stuff. Private group training available as well. We also have strong vendor partnerships with all sorts of companies, including this important one right here for our discussion. PMI, the Project Management Institute. These are the guys that publish the global standards for project management, the ones that we're going to be talking about, and talking about the benefits of seeing that it's more than just project management. So here comes our presentation. we're going to be talking about the purpose of organizational project management, called by PMI OPM. Other documentations also refer to it as enterprise project management. You may see EPM, a lot of software models refer to it that way. Same concept. It's making sure that there's a consistent, standardized way of managing projects across your organization in order to make sure that we are investing time, money, and resources to the right projects at the right time. That those projects are going to help the company achieve its goals, its objectives, towards its mission and vision statements. So we're going to talk about the purpose of OPM in that way. We're going to talk about a hierarchy within project management that organizational project management is actually describing. We're going to talk about the need and benefits of standardizing the way that we perform these tasks within the company to make sure that we gain the most benefit possible from it. And we're going to talk about the standards that are published by PMI to provide you with guidance for this, including the one called OPM3, which is specifically about applying this and growing the process model at your organization to a specific level of what quality concepts call maturity. That the processes are constantly being updated and made better to meet the needs they're intended for, that there are pieces in place that make them all the different hierarchical levels we're going to talk about, all of them work together. So OPM3 is incredible guidance towards just what we're talking about here. Now, for the purpose of organizational project management. The purpose of organizational project management is to better benefit the business. In fact, PMI's terms for it, okay? When projects aren't just executed randomly, but are tied to business strategy, when they're designed to support business goals, in that case, organizations will benefit more from their project and their project management practices than if they're just focusing on the projects themselves. There's greater benefit to the business. Greater benefit. Benefits the business, helps us achieve business goals, which helps the business to succeed. And, you know, who wants that, right? Yeah, all of us. It's about helping the business fulfill their vision and mission statements, assuming, of course, that the organization took real time to make them meaningful, and they're not just marketing or rhetoric. They really the vision and mission statements. What are we about? What are we trying to accomplish? This will help to make sure that we are investing our time, money, and resources, which, let's face it, are in limited amounts. We want to make sure that we're investing it. We're putting them where it counts. And that's what organizational project management tries to help us accomplish, so that we can implement change into the organization or into a customer's organization while reducing the risk involved with that change and while reducing the negative impact that any change can have, even if in the long run it's beneficial. For instance, IT background, Microsoft years ago did a study about the negative impact of change, and get this, updating operating systems. Now we're talking about Microsoft. They want you to update your operating system. But when they were about to launch Windows XP, they had been doing a multiple-year study about the impact of changing from one version of Windows to another. They were looking at the loss of productivity as people had to relearn the operating system. And we're talking about minor changes before XP. I mean, we're not talking Windows 8 here, okay? We're talking about the shape of the start button changed. Yeah. The start menu had its first update. We're talking about before that was released. Microsoft studies showed that on average, we lost 48 hours of productivity from every employee as they learned the new interface, as they recreated the desktop that they had from the previous computer. Not 2 days, mind you, 48 working hours. Well, that sounds to me like people weren't reducing the negative impact that could go with that kind of change. Now I give Microsoft a lot of credit. They recognized the need here. And to help us out, they created tools that would minimize that negative impact, that would make sure we didn't lose that level of productivity. All sorts of tools to help with it, including online training and pieces like that for quick tutorials and everything to help us do this. Well, that's what we're trying to accomplish within our organizations. Okay, it's not just the vendor's job. It's ours. We can't afford to have that loss of productivity, so we want to make sure that our projects, which are the means by which we implement change, that they have reduced risk, that they address the risk involved in that change, that they reduce the negative impact that could result from it, not just on one project, but across the board, and to ensure that the project results meet not just the goals for that project, but against the business goals, the business needs. If we only look at the tier called project management without the pieces above it that connect it back to the business, that connect it back to the organizational goals and strategy, then the biggest question I have when teaching project management classes, when they're just focusing on the PMBOK guide, the standard for project management, one of the biggest questions I get is, well, where do we make sure that this project actually realized the benefits it was supposed to? And there's nothing in the PMBOK guide that does it. People have often thought, they've stated, well, obviously they missed something. There's a big hole here. No. What people miss is that the PMBOK guide, the standard for project management, is actually only one tier in a larger structure that PMI refers to as organizational project management. At a higher tier, we continue to track long-term project benefits. It's called benefits realization tracking. And it happens at one of the tiers that are designed this way. So it ensures that project benefits are actually realized. That it's not just a matter of saying we're successful because testing said we were successful. Are we successful after the implementation? Does it gain the level of benefit that we thought it would, that we hoped it would? And to do all of that consistently. If I'm only, running a project according to the rules a couple of times, then all the other times I'm probably missing the mark, not helping the business to achieve the goals we could, or not establishing a way that we can track the benefits long term. Project management needs to fit into a larger context to capture the real benefits that are available from it. And to ensure, again, that the company is investing its resources, including its monetary resources, at the right place at the right time. So there is a project management hierarchy set out by PMI, and it's spelled out in all of their standards. All of them. I do mean all. Yes, indeed. Okay. Because we have standards written from PMI. Well, let me try that again. That didn't look right. For this level, and this level. Plus there's another standard that tries to tell you how to bring them all together, how to build it into an organizational project management model, to bridge the communications and enable the communications back and forth between these tiers. That's the concept. Now, it doesn't start in the area of project management. It doesn't start with something that PMI standardizes. They leave it to the business. You know your business better than some third-party anonymous group that's not for profit, right? You know it better than us. You know it better than PMI, and PMI recognizes that. The top level of this, if we really want organizational project management, it starts at the business side, at the executive level, at the corporate leaders, by making sure that we clearly detail a vision of what the company is trying to achieve. It's overarching goals, objectives, the type of company we want to be, the type of business that we want to be in, that we want to present. From there, the vision is communicated into the area of strategic planning. Typically, this is happening at executive or director levels, right? Strategic planning. This is done throughout the year. Usually done at least once a year. We hope more than that. For at least every fiscal quarter. Most companies are going to try to do this. It's looking at what are the possible ways that we can help achieve this vision. Strategic planning does something for us at the business level. Strategic planning sets, and I should put this correctly, quantified business objectives and goals. It gives us the targets at the business level that all of our projects are there to help us try to achieve. Why would a company invest time, money, and resources to accomplishing a project, a change, that doesn't help us meet our goals? In what way is that worth the investment? Well, if we don't have these all tied together, we find that companies do this all the time. Companies end up implementing projects seemingly randomly because one department thought it would be good to have it. I have an IT background. Do you know how often real-world IT groups within an organization implement projects to change the IT infrastructure based on the question, well, what's the best technology out there? From a business perspective, that's the wrong question to ask. And that's what this tie-in is about. Why is it the wrong question? If all I ask is what's the best technology, then what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up spending more money than necessary technology that we're barely going to use because we're only going to scratch the surface of it. The correct question from a business perspective will always tie it back to the output of strategic planning, to these objectives and goals. The question is not what's the best technology that's out there. It's what technology out there is the best fit to my company's needs, including their financial ones. Studies show that we waste, a single company wastes thousands to millions of dollars in a year by over-purchasing software. Purchasing software that's overkill for what we're trying to achieve. That includes we're paying extra for features that you never touch. That's because we're not tying these concepts, these projects, these decisions of what types of changes to make back to what those strategic goals are. And we need to make sure that's happening, or we are going to end up wasting money, wasting time, wasting resources, not getting the benefits that we're fully after. We're going to run out of money before we hit the objectives and goals we need. We're going to run out of resource availability before we hit that. But strategic planning just sets the goals and objectives. The question of which is the best projects to run to meet those objectives, which changes are the best ones to make, is answered here. Portfolio management. Now, this is the first of the elements that is, we have a standard from PMI to help us accomplish it. A process model. Okay, that's it, just a process model. Things that should be done, what steps need to be accomplished to make sure that we capture the greatest benefit from doing this. Portfolio management manages what PMI refers to as the project portfolio. Excellent. Well, that's kind of in the name. What's that mean? The portfolio is the entire collection of projects that we are running or have agreed that we will run. This is the level of the hierarchy that selects which programs, we'll talk about that in a second, and projects should be allocated resources. Which ones are we going to run? And it tries to tie them back to the objectives and goals from strategic planning that they help us to achieve. The decision making is going to be based on weighted metrics of which of the goals is the most important, the highest priority. How much of the total budget for these changes is going to be going towards those goals and objectives? What are the best decisions of which ones to include and move forward on? Now, most of the time in the standard, we're actually focusing on this concept when we do that. Which programs will be included? Which programs? Which, of course, brings up program management. A program is defined as a collection of projects that are related in some way. They're related in some way so that managing them as a group gives us extra benefit than if we just manage them separately. Now, one of the most common ways to organize programs if we're doing organizational project management, if we're hitting this concept of the business as a whole benefiting, okay? The most common way to organize the program is that it's a collection of projects aimed at the same strategic goal or objective. They work towards the same business need, the same target. So the portfolio management says, hey, this is the goal we're after. It's a high priority. We should initiate a program that helps us to achieve it. At the program management level, whoever's put in charge of that has got some extra work to do. At the program management level, they're going to decide which projects are going to be the most beneficial toward hitting that same strategic goal, which ones in combination. So it's going to choose which projects to run within the program. And because they are tied to a single strategic goal, this is where that long-term benefits tracking comes in, called benefits realization. Guidance toward that is in the standard for program management and how to accomplish it. To keep tying it back to, are we meeting the goal, the objective that was seen from strategic planning to be important, to be prioritized, that portfolio management allocated us resources towards, including money, a budget. Now, each of the individual projects, we want to make sure that they meet their objectives, that they meet their requirements while remaining within the constraints. That's the heart and soul of project management. Meeting requirements while remaining within constraints. If you meet the requirements, if you hit the goals, but you cost more money than we had available, then you're stealing from other programs. You're stealing from the ability for the company to make other changes to help meet other goals. We needed to stay within those. Now, this is all going away, so I can move to the next slide. That means there's a need for standardization at these different levels. There is. There's an absolute need for standardization within this concept. Portfolio and program management benefits. Imagine for a moment, okay? You've got that job. You're the program manager. You're the program manager. Many companies, in fact, according to surveys, most companies around the world don't have but project management, if any of these tiers in place. Each project manager runs their project, hopefully to success. How do they do it? Well, questionnaires and surveys show that in most companies, each project manager seems to decide how to do it, and the only thing that's being standardized is some of the reports that are generated. That not even the same software for tracking the projects is often used. Imagine that for a second as a program manager. If my job is to make sure all the projects in the program are meeting the goals that they're set forth, to make sure that the program as a whole is helping to hit those strategic goals. If I'm going to be tracking long-term benefits, you know what's going to happen? Guaranteed. Something's going to change while that set of projects is running. I'm going to end up having my budget cut or my time frame cut. And now I need to do something about that with the projects in it. I no longer have the budget I thought I had. So I'm going to have to allocate the money of my program across the different projects within it. Well, to make those decisions, which is what program management does, I got to bring in the current information, the reporting information of how each and every one of those projects is performing against its goals. I got to know how we're doing to make an educated decision. Well, imagine for a moment, okay? Imagine for just a moment being that person to make that decision. And when you ask for the reports to come in, when you ask to see how they're doing on the projects, one of them turns it in using Microsoft Project. One of them turns it in using Primavera, owned by Oracle. One of them turns it in using the Computer Associates Enterprise Project Management Solution. I wasn't kidding about the EPM concept. Different documentation. When you do that, how do you compare them? You can't even bring them up in the same screen. You're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing apples to horse carts. That's not going to work. I need standardization in the way the projects are performed. What tools are used, what software, where the data is kept, how the metrics are generated, which metrics are used. Or good luck tracking those benefits and making good sound business decisions based on the data. If I can't compare and contrast how the different projects are doing, then I'm not going to be very good at program management. Take that past that up to the portfolio level. Companies got it. Well, we had to spend some extra money for emergency reasons, so we had to remove money from what was set aside for the portfolio of changes to make. Now we've got to decide which programs are going to get hit. Same thing. If we don't have a standardized approach to project management and program management levels, we're never going to get the level of benefit and control that we're looking for at the portfolio level. The higher levels of this structure require standardization of the levels below them to have meaning, to capture the level of benefit that this whole thing is about. So all of the standards, and we got 4 to talk about, all of the standards, they all have a reference to this thing called a PMO. Now the PMO, officially in PMI, it's called a Project Management Office. Although studies have shown that real world, plenty of people call it a Program Management Office. Some people call it a Portfolio Management Office. Some companies call it Autonomous Project Teams. Others call it the Project Control. The PMO is a concept, okay? But it's more than that. It's a business function. Think department, team. A permanent, centralized business function. A permanent central team or department tasked with setting and enforcing these project management standards. Making sure that all project managers are using the authorized software package. That they are producing reports based on the authorized templates. In fact, coming up with what those are. That they're all following the standardized procedures. That they are performing the project management tasks, the program management tasks, in the same way. So that when we compare these pieces at those higher levels, so that when we compare all the projects in the program, we're seeing apples to apples. So we can get the full level of benefit. So we're not making decisions based on best guesses and assumptions. But having it standardized allows us to see it better. And also from a project manager's perspective, if we fit the standards that the upper levels have, then it makes it easier for executives to understand our reports, to have expectations for the reporting, to understand it and make decisions based on it. Because they don't have to shift gears and have each report explained to them for each project, for each program, in order to understand it, because they're being done the same way. If we want organizational project management, if we want benefits realization tracked against business goals, short-term and long-term, and we want that to be successful, if we want to know that we are investing our time, our money, our very limited resources, talking about people and skill sets, we want to know we're investing those in the right place at the right time, then we need standardization across those 3 tiers. We do. There's no way around it. The PMO is the mechanism to do that. Not just to write the standards, but to hold the different people working in those tiers, to hold them accountable for it. To enforce a sense of governance. Okay? Set the standards, set the rules, policy, and enforce them. Audit it. Give a centralized reporting office. Okay? Everything else. The PMO. Now that sounds like a large undertaking, doesn't it? To get all this in place? Well, it is. There's nothing small about it. To get full organizational project management or enterprise project management means the entire organization or enterprise has to be involved. It can't just be the project managers doing this if you want the full benefit. It's got to go right up the tiers, up to those guys that are setting the vision, that are involved in the strategic planning. It's got to include them. Some people apply it in a top-down approach. Get the portfolio management concepts in place, then the program management, then the project management. Setting up the portfolio in that way, you'd implement the PMO at that level. That's where you'd implement the project management office to standardize the pieces below it, which is considered a best practice. How do I know it's a best practice? Because I have actually read this book. There are 4 published global standards. There's also then a whole ton of what are called practice standards and frameworks published by PMI. But we're here to talk about these published global standards. Okay? Published global standards. When PMI first came out, when the Project Management Institute was first created, they didn't go and create this organizational approach at first. Their focus was here, that project management level. That's where they focused. They created the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, better known as the PMBOK Guide. Well, since it was created first, I want you to understand that it's got a higher edition number in its current version than any of the others. We are currently in our 5th edition of the so-called PMBOK Guide, Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge. This is the global standard for project management. Who says so? Well, among others, the American National Standards Institute, ANSI. ANSI ratified the PMBOK Guide as a global standard for project management for our country, recognized by the U.S. as a global standard. It's recognized by over 130 countries worldwide as a global standard. All of the other ones came about later. So currently, the other standards are all in the 3rd edition. Okay? Now these are all going to be updated together from now on according to all the goals and ideas from the PMI. All of them. Because they will be published together, which they have been for the last 2 versions. All 4 are released together when changes are made. If you want guidance on the processes to perform for portfolio management, it's called the Standard for Portfolio Management. That's the name of the book. There's a standard for program management, nicely titled, The Standard for Program Management. And of course, there's the one for the bottom tier, a guide to the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide. And then there's the standard that helps to guide us towards putting all three of these together into a cohesive picture, called the Organizational Project Management Maturity Model, OPM3. Now, some of you might be familiar with another process maturity model, considered kind of the de facto standard for the idea of how to measure the maturity of a process. Is a quality management concept out there called CMM originally. Now it's CMMI. That's great. Well, this model is a maturity model for project management processes. And you can get your organization, individuals can be certified against each of these standards here to perform the work at that level, to show that somebody has the knowledge to get that done. Your organization, your business can be certified at OPM3 at a specific level of maturity. This is PMI's version of CMMI that's specific. CMMI is generic. It's all processes. These are specific to the project management tiers we're discussing. In fact, there's a great graphic for this. I've got, whoop, didn't mean to do that. Boom. There we go. Did it again. Here we go. I've got PMI's website open here. I'm going to bring it into the screen. Here we go. Okay. Library of PMI Global Standards, the foundational standards. Now, what I want you to see is not the languages that the PMBOK guide is published in. I want you to notice this pyramid structure. The PMBOK is this bottom pyramid, the project management level. Okay? Preeminent global standard for project management, fundamental practices needed to achieve organizational results and excellence in the practice of project management. One level up is program management. The standard for program management, notice, now it's pointing at the middle tier of that pyramid. Resource for helping program manager find the best means of achieving their goals and driving organizational success. Help assess the varieties of factors linking projects under one program. For instance, the link is often in this model a common goal, a business objective, a strategic goal. To help understand things like the best allotment of resources between those projects. How do I break up my budget and resource availability across all the projects going towards that goal? They recommend this not just for program managers, but also for project managers, portfolio managers, executives, and senior management, because they can get a real better picture of how the decisions are made and tools to help enable the better decision making to happen. Below there, focusing on the top of the pyramid, the standard for portfolio management. If the project and program management are disciplines for doing the work right, portfolio management is for doing the right work. It's about making the choices of what programs or projects will run, by first looking at the strategic goals and prioritizing them, with processes to help us understand how to make those decisions, standardized ways that people can go about making those decisions in a sound business model, utilizing business cases, utilizing project justification concepts, and different metrics that do exist in our common practice. But then, this one, OPM3. All three sections of the pyramid are highlighted because it's how to put them together. How to put them together. The OPM3 book provides guidance on how to do that and the tools the organization needs to measure the maturity of their project management model. against a set of organizational best practices? How well are you doing against the intended goals of OPM, of Organizational Project Management? How good are you doing at making sure that your company is getting those benefits at the levels we want and need? These published global standards, it takes a lot of guts for a company to say, hey, I have produced the way for all projects, for all programs to be managed. No matter your industry, no matter what part of the world you're in, that takes some real guts to say that, doesn't it? Well, the reason they can say it is because these are generic. They're meant to be. These standards don't say this is exactly what you will do. They provide guidance and recommendations that need to be made to fit the goals and objectives of your company. That need to be made to fit the size and scale of your company, the industry it's a part of. They're a framework, not a methodology. Methodologies tell us what to do, when to do it, how to do it. A framework says, here's what needs to be done. You need to figure out the best order to do it in. You need to figure out how your tool set will help you to accomplish it. Here's additional tools we recommend. The idea is that we, as professionals, would create a methodology for our organization from this framework. Okay? The framework becomes kind of the skeletal structure for you to build your methodology on. Now, PMI calls that tailoring. We tailor the model to fit first our industry, our existing policies, procedures, and tools. And then there's a bit of tailoring that happens for each program and down to each project. And of course, there's education and certifications available against all 4 of those standards. OPM 3 is actually certifying your process model, your methodology, against best practices for OPM. And personally, I don't think enough companies are aware of that. You can get so much out of this. Tons. And we can all do better. How much better? I'll be honest. Statistics suggest that, globally speaking, human beings are terrible at project management, at implementing change that is beneficial and stays within restrictions, within constraints. There are estimates each year that suggest that between 70 and 90% annually, that's why it's such a wide range, of projects initiated each year come in over their deadlines, over their budgets, both, or fail to meet the goals they were after in the first place. One or the other. I would call those failures. We need to get better at it. This provides guidance for it and a way to make sure that we are understanding it. That's what that OPM 3 standardization is about. That's what OPM 3 tests against. Well, that really ends the introduction about the idea of the OPM model. That it's not just the project management piece. That it's all got to fit back to the idea of what are the goals and objectives, what's the vision the company is after. What are the strategic goals that we have prioritized for the business? Make sure we are putting our time, money, and resources where they will do the most good. So your next steps would be to start looking into how this could be applied at your own organization. Figure out the tier you want to start with. Where can you affect the greatest change early? Start to build on those successes and build the other changes in. Tailor it to fit before implementing it. Eventually, if you're going to do this at the organizational level, you're going to need that centralized office for standardizing the practices, a centralized area for reporting, for communications between project teams. That's that PMO. And you're going to want to know, looking at your current methodology, what you can do to make it better. What can you do to make sure that you've got the best approach, the one that fits to recognized best practices? And that's what OPM3 is about, with guidance to help you do it better. Well, that brings up the last 10-minute schedule for this, as available to you to ask me questions. A question and answer section. So I leave it up to you. And if you don't have any, I hope that you found this enjoyable. I hope you found it informative. My name's Barry, and hopefully we'll hear from you again, and maybe you'll even show up in one of my project management classes. Feel free to ask any questions you have at this point in time. All right. Well, I'll turn the handles over, the controls back over to Anthony then. If a question comes up, I'm still online. I'll be glad to answer it. If not, I'll let him wrap things up, and we'll call it an afternoon. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care.